the house, where Wesley Miller sat behind a massive desk waiting for them. Danny sat slumped in a chair, bruises covering his face. Andrew rushed to his brother's side. Danny opened his eyes when Andrew touched his cheek. "You came," he whispered. "Of course I did." Andrew turned back to Miller and pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. "I sketched out the interior of the house and marked where they sleep. I'd like to take my brother and go now." "I bet you would," Wesley answered. "That's not going to happen, as I'm sure you realize. We'll confirm that this information is accurate, and then allow you and your brother to leave." "How are you going to confirm it?" Wesley ignored him. "Graham, take the plans to the boys and see that they move quickly." Graham hurried from the room, leaving Danny and Andrew alone with Wesley. "Now, Danny, let's hope your brother is as honorable as you say he is. I have a lot riding on this." "I didn't lie. It's all there. Please, just let us go. Now that Caleb's better, they don't need me anymore, so I have no reason to go back there, and I won't. All I want is to get my brother and go home." Wesley scowled. "He's better? How is that possible?" "Because Andrew is an amazing nurse," Danny said. "Well, it wasn't all that serious. He just had an infection." "Crap, I shouldn't have said that, damn it." Andrew grabbed Danny's shoulder and knelt beside him. Wesley came around the desk and grabbed Andrew, forcing him to turn back around. "An infection? Tell me." He squeezed and Andrew winced. "Stop that. And yes, just an infection. I guess he got drugged a week or two ago at a club, and the needle broke off inside him. It was really weird if you ask me, but all that happened was that he got an infection from it. Thank goodness. It could have been worse if it had been a dirty needle. He could have caught something." Wesley pushed down on Andrew's shoulder, and he cried out in pain. "Are you certain?" Wesley demanded. I don't know what you mean." Andrew tried to push Wesley's hand away, but the man was extremely strong. "Nothing else happened?" "No, sir. He had a fever, was weak, and the spot around the site got inflamed. It could have been worse, but he's fine now." "That doesn't make any sense." Wesley stormed back around the desk and picked up the phone. "My office, now," he commanded. Within moments, Graham and two other men rushed through the door of Wesley's office. "Sir?" "The sun didn't react to the silver. I think we received bad information." One of the men scoffed. "No, sir. Our source is very reliable." Andrew eyed the man. The set jaw, determined eyes. He had no doubts. He had the same dark coloring of Alphonse and Caleb. He decided to try to pass along a clue to Alphonse, who was listening to every word through a listening device Andrew wore under his shirt. "What information? Maybe I can help." "Well, you probably don't need it. You look a lot like them. Are you a cousin or something? Is this a family squabble?" The man turned to Andrew, and his glare sent a shiver down his spine. His anger was every bit as frightening as anything Andrew had seen so far. "Sorry, I didn't mean to jump into something here. I just want to take my brother and go home." "Mario." Wesley turned to the still glaring man. "Are you certain?" Finally, a name to go with Mr. Glare. Mario. He hoped it meant something to the DiMartinos. "I'm certain," Mario answered. "And this one knows more than he's letting on. I can guarantee it." They all turned to stare at Andrew. He tried not to squirm from his position, kneeling on the floor beside Danny. "Listen, if I have any information you need, just ask. You know why I'm here and what I want. I'll do whatever it takes to get Danny and me out of here in one piece." "I know exactly what it's going to take." Mario laughed. "I think we should send him back to them in pieces. Boss, isn't that your normal method of dealing with troublemakers?" Wesley arched a brow. "No, actually it isn't." A pounding knock on the door drew everyone's attention. The cavalry had arrived. Graham went to the door, with Mario and the other man at his heels. Andrew could hear shouting voices and jumped to his feet. He pulled Danny up beside him and guided them back into the corner. There was no way he could make it to the door, and there wasn't another way out. Danny, if you can get out the door, you need to go. Understood? Danny nodded. Oh, what about you? With any luck, I'll be right behind you. My car is parked out front. Just get in and drive, okay? I left the keys in it. Oh, okay. Alphonse and Caleb burst through the door with Jed and Monty at their heels. From the clenched jaws and bloodthirsty glares, they weren't here for a friendly chat. Alphonse stalked into Wesley's face. Wesley had a good 6 inches of height on Alphonse, but he still took a hasty step back. No one could deny the force behind the man. You tried to kill my son. Perhaps I should take one of yours instead. The difference being, I will succeed where you failed. Andrew blanched. What the hell had he gotten himself into? Would Alphonse really kill one of the Miller boys? He tried to keep his expression neutral, but he didn't think he quite succeeded. With everyone crowded around the desk, the doorway was left unguarded. Andrew gave Danny a little push, and that was all the encouragement his brother needed. He scurried for the door and was out before anyone noticed. Andrew wasn't so lucky. The moment he moved, Caleb pivoted and caught him in his stare. Don't. He froze halfway to the door and leaned against the wall. Caleb turned his attention back to his father. No, Wesley said. You don't need one of my sons. This is all a misunderstanding. No, you misunderstand. Alphonse answered. My nephew. Alphonse spit the word out with such anger that Mario flinched and stepped back. Wanted what I've worked hard to achieve. What I've spent my life building, as did my father before me. He told me you were... Wesley trailed off. Alphonse reached up and grabbed him by the throat. I don't care what he told you. The boy hates that his father lets his inheritance decay into nothing but a bankrupt business. He has nothing, so he wants what is mine. Come after me or mine again, and I will not be so forgiving. Alphonse pushed Wesley away and nodded to Jed and Monty. His guards grabbed Mario by the arms, and he struggled against them. Uncle, no! Not another word, boy. Mario snapped his mouth closed and allowed himself to be led out the door. Alphonse and Caleb turned to Andrew. Caleb moved ahead and held his hand out. Andrew grabbed hold, and Caleb pulled him out the door. Alphonse followed at their heels. They reached the car, and Andrew climbed in front. Caleb got behind the wheel while Alphonse squeezed in beside Andrew. Jed, Monty, and Mario took up the entire back seat. Alphonse's clenched jaw and angry eyes kept Andrew from opening his mouth. He had more questions, but forced himself to keep quiet. Caleb started the SUV and began to drive home. He reached over, squeezed Andrew's leg, and left his hand resting there. His thumb traced a slow path along Andrew's knee. Andrew took what comfort he could from the touch. No one spoke for the entire drive. Tension filled the vehicle. When they parked, Jed and Monty dragged Mario inside. Alphonse waited outside the car for Andrew and Caleb. What happened to your brother? The Alpha's voice was a low growl. Andrew shuddered. I told him to leave if he had the chance. And he left you there? Yes, I told him to go. Alphonse huffed and stormed inside. Andrew turned to Caleb. I take it he's not impressed. I think that's an understatement. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Glad you guys showed up when you did. Once Dad heard it was Mario, he didn't want to wait any longer. Andrew could imagine. He knew all about family betrayal. What happened to the others? They're still around. He gestured toward the street where a large truck rumbled to a stop. The other wolves stepped out, and they pulled the struggling Danny out of the back seat. Oh, shit! Andrew grabbed Caleb's arm. What are they doing with him? You didn't really think Pop was going to let him off scot-free, did you? But why? He didn't do anything. Caleb shook his head. Let's just go inside. We can talk it over with Pop and see where everything stands. Danny cried out for Andrew, and he watched his brother continue to try to free himself. Danny, stop it! For God's sake! These are the good guys! He did stop, but not out of relief. He glared at Andrew until he was jerked forward again. You told me to leave. That's what you said. I know. We'll just have to get this worked out. Don't worry. I trust these guys. Yeah, I bet you do. Andrew shook his head and went inside. Caleb followed behind him, as did Danny and his keepers. Alphonse waited in the living room. He gestured to a seat, and Danny was forced into it. Caleb, take Andrew upstairs for a few minutes. I need to have a serious discussion with this young man. And Andrew, this is not the time to argue with me. Andrew snapped his mouth closed. He turned and marched up the stairs, grumbling under his breath. Stop it! Caleb nudged him in the ribs. He can hear you. Andrew scowled. I don't like being treated like a child. He's not. Come on. Caleb went into his room and shut the door. I hated having you go in there alone. I swear, I've never been so worried. Andrew lifted his shirt and pulled up the tape holding the microphone in place. I can't believe they didn't check me for this. I thought that's what would trip me up. I did too. Pop was right, though. They didn't consider you a threat. Didn't think you really knew our secrets anyway. You're stronger than anyone gives you credit for. Caleb pulled Andrew to him. I didn't underestimate you. Just worried. Andrew shook his head. You had reason to. As much as I like taking care of myself, I was in over my head with all this. I hope it's finally over. It will be. Pop will get Mario sorted out. I really don't want to know what's going to happen when Uncle finds out what he did. Even with the animosity between Pop and his brother, he'd never want Mario to do something like this. He's going to be pissed. I would hope so. Mario is a loose cannon. What if he tries again? And how much did he tell them? Caleb shrugged and pulled Andrew closer. I don't know. We'll have to find out. This has the potential to be a disaster. We might have to relocate. I hope that doesn't happen. We like it here. Move? Andrew looked up and wrapped his hand behind Caleb's neck. The dark curls he loved to touch brushed against his fingers, and he gave them a tug. Why? If the Millers suspect, they'll try to get their proof. I'm hoping they just think Mario is off his rocker. We'll have to play up some mental disability or something. Again, Uncle is going to be pissed. But I'll have to leave that decision to Pop. I don't want to leave, especially now that I've met you. Andrew ran his fingers through Caleb's hair. Yeah, it's fast, but I know we've got something here. Something we can build on. I don't want it to get thrown away because you're a stupid cousin. Or my brother. Jesus, what do you think Alphonse is doing to him? Caleb rubbed his head against Andrew's hand. My guess is giving him the sternest lecture he's ever received. Pop doesn't play, and he believes the family comes first. For Danny to do what he did to you? Steal from you? Abandon you at the Millers? That will not go over well. Hopefully Pop can get through to him. Andrew could admit that a reformed Danny would be a great outcome from the mess that the past couple of weeks had become. His brother needed to find another path. But as long as the family babied him and let him get away with his erratic behavior, nothing would change. I hope so. He needs a reality check. That he does. Don't worry about Pop hurting him. You know that won't happen, right? It didn't worry Andrew. The possibility of Alphonse losing his temper with Danny and what that might entail. I hope not, was all he could answer. Caleb leaned down and kissed Andrew's jaw. He won't.